If you have kids, you may sometimes worry about how they are able to handle the pressures of life, school, sports, relationships, you name it. Well, as it turns out, just talking with your children about their concerns and problems can really help their emotional growth. Not to mention it'll likely also contribute to a stronger parent-child relationship. For more on this, adolescent behavioral specialist Dr. Erin Leonard is here with some tips on becoming a parent that your child can talk to. Hi, and thank you. This is important stuff because a lot of people, you think as adults we know what to do, but approaching children and starting a conversation sometimes seems overwhelming. So how do you start?
Well, we'll start with the easy stuff first. Two things to keep in mind when you're starting a conversation with your child is one, to capitalize on any moment that you have. So a lot of the times car rides are a nice place to kind of open up a communication or a dialogue.
Captive audience there.
Captive audience. As long as you turn the radio off and your phone off, you know, and really be present for the conversation. That can be a nice time. Running an errand with your child, there's some nice one-on-one time there. You know, when you're saying goodnight to your child at night, it's nice to sit at the edge of the bed and to kind of talk about things then. One really good tool is to always ask kind of a specific question. So really, I think no parent in the world has ever gotten a great response from, "How was your day?" So really having
hone in more. How's that thing going with you in Beth or whatever?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, we also talk about indirect communication. What's that?
Okay, so basically indirect communication is when you really want to get at the child's feelings about an issue instead of kind of an answer. So we love to fix our child's problems and we love to kind of go in and help them fix their own problems when really it's the feelings that need to be kind of dealt with. If we're not empathizing with the child's feelings or helping them understand, you know, how to metabolize their difficult feelings, then it's really hard to kind of move on and to problem solve in kind of a calm, rational way. So really what you're trying to do is kind of be a detective and really figure out what they're feeling and then kind of identify it and reflect it to them. So I can give you an example. Sure. And before really trying to be empathetic or empathize with your child, what you need to do is be aware of your own emotional state. So if you're worried or stressed or if you're preoccupied, you really need to consciously kind of be aware of that so you can set that aside and really be there for your child.
You're going to affect them in a weird way otherwise because you want to be there for them instead of them getting all worried about you.
Yes.
Now, what is this inquiry-based listening, another tip that you have?
Okay, so the inquiry-based listening is basically you're going to kind of empathically explore the situation or the issue with them. So you want to ask very open-ended questions beginning with what, because that sounds a lot less confrontational. And it gives the conversation less of a lecture type of a feel. So for example, you can say, well, what would make you feel like that? Or what do you think happened that led you to make that decision? So if you really try and start the conversations with what instead of why or how or you, then you're going to get a lot further with your child because they're going to be more open with their feelings.
You're not blaming them. You're just sort of you're a friend asking questions here. Now you say also to set aside talk time. This goes beyond I've got you trapped in the car right now.
Yes.
So you're going to talk to me. How do you set aside talk time though without making them feel like okay, this is being forced upon me and I hate this?
Sure. Well, you definitely want to make sure that they feel like their feelings are safe with you. So you don't want to contradict their feelings. What you want to do is identify, reflect, and validate. And then also, you know, you really want to be open to what their opinion and their viewpoint. And that doesn't mean you don't have to follow through with a rule or a consequence, or you don't have to change your plan as a parent. But really being open to the perspective and being respectful of that will open up the dialogue, and your child will then come to you and feel like they can talk to you, which is the most important thing.
It sounds like you're treating your child sort of like an adult. You're giving them sort of some space where you're not, you do this, you do that. You're opening up to them. But I guess there's a limit. I mean, for instance, world events, things that are so frightening. When is it age appropriate to start talking about things like ISIS or things they'd see on the news that are just demoralizing adults, much less children?
Right. Well, an important thing to do would be to open up the conversation, but let them guide it. So if you don't want to give them too much adult information, too much sophisticated information, because emotionally they might not be able to not be ready for that. So what you want to do is you want to open up the dialogue and let them lead it. So they'll ask you the questions that they're actually ready to hear the answer to. So if you let them lead the conversation and then let them know, honey, I'm open to any questions you have about this. If anything comes up, you know, I'm here to talk about it. And so that way, you know, you're not giving them an overload of information, but they know that if something comes up, that you're open to talking about it.
If the question they ask you is really touchy, a difficult thing, do you tell it straight, or do you sort of twist it so it's better for them to handle?
I think you have to absolutely go with your gut as a parent. And I think breaking it down to the simplest form and breaking it down to, you know, that things can be frightening and can be scary, and that you are there to help them with these feelings if they come up.
Dr. Leonard, thanks so much for being with us.
Sure.
Appreciate the tips. And we are going to take a break, and we'll be back with more news. This is CLTV.